I was led to contemplate what no mortal should see, and in that forbidden moment, the very veils of the firmament were torn asunder before my eyes. You have been told that the history of our world is a slow, steady climb from darkness into light, a linear path of human evolution. But that is a lie designed to keep you sleeping. The truth is far more terrifying, for I witnessed the fall of those who swore allegiance and then betrayed the Most High. I saw the clock of heaven nearing its end, its gears grinding against the corruption of an ancient rebellion. And while signs are plastered before everyone's eyes, few possess the spiritual vision to see them. Prepare yourselves, for the cycle is about to be fulfilled. The time of judgment has been sealed, and the heat is rising. This is not merely a story of the past. It is the blueprint of your future, and it begins where all nightmares begin, with a flash that tore through the clouds like a fiery sword, marking the moment mighty angels fell from the heavens. They breached the sacred boundaries set by the Most High, shattered the immutable laws of God, and in their lust and arrogance, they took wives from among the daughters of men. What followed was not a union of love, but a collision of worlds that fathered giants, whose strength made the mountains tremble, and whose hunger would nearly extinguish the human race. I am Enoch, and I was taken up to heaven, pulled beyond the fragile veil that separates the mortal from the eternal, to behold what no ordinary man should ever survive seeing. I was shown the deepest secrets of the fallen angels, the hidden chambers of creation where primordial light still breathes, and the divine judgments that would shape the destiny of all humanity. But where there is revelation, there also comes the crushing weight of truth, a burden so heavy it fractures the spirit. What I discovered was a war between worlds, a clandestine invasion where angels descended to earth, not to guide, but to corrupt. They forged forbidden pacts in darkness, a corruption so vast and pervasive that it aroused the burning wrath of the Creator himself. This is not just the story of a chosen man. It is the authentic account of an ancient rebellion, of the fall of immortal beings, and of a final judgment that would forever change the destiny of heaven, earth, and all that breathes under the firmament. I was commanded to write so that future generations, your generation, may know the truth and prepare for the inescapable reality of what is to come. The corruption did not begin with a shout, but with a whisper of desire in the hearts of those who were meant to be watchers. In those dark days, when the human population exploded across the land, daughters were born to men, women of rare and haunting beauty, whose grace illuminated the primitive villages like moonlight on dark water. The angels, the sons of heaven, observed these women from their celestial vantage points and felt a sensation that was alien to their nature: desire. It was a forbidden heat that began to burn in their immortal hearts, a lust that defied the very architecture of their creation. They whispered to one another in the high places, conspiring to abandon their posts, saying, "Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from the daughters of men, and let us father children with them, powerful offspring that will rule this mud and dust." But Semyaza, their leader, a being of immense power and intellect, halted them. He was restless, his eyes filled with the foresight of doom, fearful before the gravity of the act they were about to commit. He declared to his subordinates, "I fear that you may not really want to go on, that when the moment of severance comes, you will falter, and I alone will have to bear the guilt for this great sin." But the rebellion was already a fever in their blood. They answered him with unanimous firmness, a collective voice of defiance that rang against the cold, thin air of the upper atmosphere. They said, "Let us all swear an oath. Let us bind ourselves with a sacred curse, a blood pact of spirit and will, so that none of us will turn back." Thus, on the snowy, desolate summit of Mount Hermon, they descended. 200 rebellious stars, hovering like living flames, touched the earth. They called that mountain Hermon, because it was there they swore and bound themselves under the weight of their own curse, sealing their fate and the fate of humanity. These were not mindless beasts. They were leaders, heads of divisions, with names that once commanded respect in the halls of heaven. Samyaza, their commander, Urakiba, Ramil, Kokabiel, and Azazel. 20 leaders, each at the head of 10 legions, governing the 200 angels. They stripped off their celestial glory and took human wives, cohabiting with them in a grotesque mockery of marriage, defiling themselves with a union that biology and spirit were never meant to sustain. The corruption they brought was not just biological, it was technological and spiritual. They acted as illicit teachers, revealing to women enchantments and forbidden rituals, the dark arts of witchcraft, and the cutting of roots to manipulate life and death. They taught secrets that should never have been revealed to humanity, cracking open the Pandora's box of cosmic knowledge. Azazel, one of the most wicked of the fallen, taught men how to forge swords, knives, shields, and armor. He showed them the secrets hidden in the metals of the earth, how to extract iron and copper, and shape them for the sole purpose of industrial slaughter. Before this, war was a clumsy affair of stones and wood. After Azazel, it became an art form of blood and steel. He taught about bracelets and ornaments, the use of antimony to darken the eyes, the beautification of the eyelids, and all kinds of precious stones and dyes. This was not mere vanity. It was the weaponization of seduction, the introduction of lust and materialism that aroused vanity and warped the human soul. Because of this, a profound wickedness spread like a plague. People gave themselves over to immorality, deviating completely from the paths of righteousness. Samyaza taught enchantments, Barakiel taught astrology, Kokabiel revealed the constellations, and Ezekiel taught the reading of the clouds. They turned the natural world into a tool for divination and power. And from this unholy union, the women conceived. But they did not give birth to men. They gave birth to monsters, the Nephilim, colossal beings whose height reached 300 cubits, titans of flesh and bone, so immense that their shadows darkened entire fields. At first, they were sustained by the labor of men, but their appetites were bottomless. These giants devoured everything that humans produced, the grain, the livestock, the fruits of the harvest. And when humanity could no longer sustain them, when the granaries were empty and the fields lay barren, the giants turned against men themselves. It was a harvest of horror. They began to devour the human race without pity, snatching men up like locusts. They sinned against birds, against wild animals, against reptiles, and even against the fish of the sea, tearing through the ecosystem with an insatiable hunger. And finally, given over to absolute ferocity, they began to devour each other's flesh and drink blood without remorse. The earth, corrupted and wounded, soaked in the blood of its children and the unnatural fluids of these abominations, cried out. It was a scream that tore across the horizon, a lament that ascended past the clouds, past the stars, all the way to the heavenly gates, demanding justice. From the heights of heaven, the archangels Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down. They saw the bloodshed, the industrial scale of violence, and the wickedness that consumed the earth. They heard the souls of men fleeing their broken bodies, crying out to the holy ones on high. The archangels trembled under the weight of that cry. They presented themselves before the Lord of heaven, saying, "You are the Lord of lords, the God of gods, the King of kings. Your glorious throne endures throughout all generations. You know all things before they happen. You see what Azazel has done, how he taught every form of injustice on earth, and revealed eternal secrets that men were never meant to know. You see Samyaza, whom you gave authority, and how he has defiled himself with the daughters of men. The women have borne giants, and now the whole earth is flooded with blood and violence. The souls of the dead cry out to the heavens, and their groans rise like dense smoke. Not yet. You see this, and yet you say nothing. What are we to do?" Then the Most High, the Holy and Great One, spoke. His voice shook the pillars of creation, a sound that was both a sentence and a salvation. He did not speak of negotiation. He spoke of erasure and renewal. He sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, to Noah, with a command to hide, to reveal that the end was near. "The whole earth will be destroyed," the Lord declared. "A flood will come upon the entire world to exterminate everything that exists in it." But the judgment was not just for water, it was for fire and chains. The Lord commanded Raphael, "Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the deepest darkness. Open a fissure in the desert of Dudael and throw him there. Place rough stones upon him, cover him with eternal darkness, and let him remain there forever, never to see the light until the great day of judgment, when he will be cast into the purifying fire." To Gabriel, the Lord gave the command of civil war. "Advance against the bastards, the corrupted race, the children born of celestial fornication. Destroy the children of the watchers from among men. Send them against each other in battle, so that they may exterminate themselves." This was the verdict. The watchers thought they had stolen eternity for their children, hoping each would live 500 years. But the Lord declared that the prolongation of their days would not belong to them. No request from their fathers would be granted. To Michael, the order was given to arrest the leaders. "Go and inform Samyaza and the others who have defiled themselves. Bind them for 70 generations beneath the earth until the day of their final judgment. On that day, they will be cast into the abyss of fire, into torment and prison, where they will remain forever." But the Lord's plan was not merely destruction, it was healing. "Destroy all evil spirits born from the works of the watchers," he commanded. "Eliminate all injustice from the earth. Let every evil deed come to an end. Plant justice and truth upon the world. And in that future day, the righteous will escape evil, and the whole earth will be cultivated in righteousness, full of blessing and trees that bear abundant fruit." But before the healing, there had to be the confrontation. I, Enoch, was taken from among the sons of men, led by angels to a distant place where the air burned like a scorching wind. They told me, "Enoch, scribe of righteousness, go to the watchers who have abandoned the glory of heaven. Tell them there will be no rest nor reconciliation for them. I obeyed. I traveled to the valley of Abel Maim, between Lebanon and Mount Serir, where the watchers hid like defeated warriors. They were no longer the radiant beings of the upper air. They were bowed down, their faces covered, ashamed, as if the very light wounded them. I delivered the message, a sentence that weighed like a mountain range. Upon hearing it, they trembled. Fear, raw and human, poured from them. They begged me to write a petition, a legal plea to the Most High, hoping that somehow, through my hand, they might obtain mercy. They dared not lift their eyes to heaven anymore. Their sin had separated them from the light like an insurmountable abyss. I wrote their plea, each word heavy with their despair, and I began the ascent. I traversed layers of the firmament, rising until I reached a translucent celestial sea where waves of light danced like liquid fire. The gates of heaven opened, and I entered the divine court where the throne of the Most High shines like a perpetual ray. I prostrated myself, face to the ground, the petition in my hands. Then I heard the voice of the Most High, a voice that filled every atom of existence. Enoch, return to the watchers and announce my answer. You were created to be eternal, made of spirit and light, but you chose the flesh. You abandoned your sacred dwelling to mingle with women, teaching forbidden secrets. Therefore, there will be no peace nor forgiveness. And as for your children, the giants, they will be destroyed. I returned to them with the death sentence of their race. No plea would be answered. No bridge would be rebuilt. Heaven had closed its gates. But the horror of the giants would not end with their physical death. The Lord revealed to me a terrifying secret about the nature of these beings. The children of the watchers, the giants, will be destroyed, but their spirits will not ascend to heaven, nor will they descend to the resting place of men. Because they were born of flesh and spirit, they will belong to neither world. When their colossal bodies are destroyed, their spirits will rise from the carcasses as invisible storms, evil shadows that will wander the earth. They will hunger but never eat. They will thirst but never drink. They will cause pain, confusion, and violence among men, rising up against humanity until the end of time. These are the demons that haunt the world, the disembodied echoes of a rebellion that sought to corrupt the very seed of mankind. This is the truth of the world you live in, a battlefield littered with the invisible wreckage of a war you were never taught in school. And this was only the beginning of what I was shown. You think the ground beneath your feet is solid, that the sky above is merely gas and vacuum, and that death is a silent, dreamless sleep. You are wrong. The world you inhabit is nothing more than a thin skin stretched over a pulsating, terrifying anatomy of spiritual machinery that has been grinding since before the first sunrise. Most men live their entire lives staring at the shadows on the wall, never turning their heads to see the blinding fire that casts them. But I, Enoch, was grabbed by the shoulders and forced to look directly into the glare. After delivering the sentence of doom to the fallen watchers, I was not returned to the comfort of my home or the silence of the earth. Instead, I was ripped from the physical plane and dragged through the invisible curtains that separate the visible from the eternal. What I saw next dissolves the comforting lie that the universe is a random collection of rocks and gas. It is a meticulously ordered kingdom, a hierarchy of light and terror, where every atom obeys a command except for the rebellious heart of man. The angels led me through a transition that felt like dying, a severance from the laws of physics. I was taken to a realm where the laws of nature were inverted, a place where waters flowed as if rushing upwards, defying gravity. A luminous ocean crossed by rivers of fire and columns of flames that descended like living waterfalls. This was not a place of geography. It was a place of power. The brilliance of that realm seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like the chest of a sleeping giant. I asked the angel, whose grip was like iron upon my spirit, "What world is this?" And he answered with a voice that sounded like tearing metal, "This is the boundary between heaven and earth, the foundation upon which the firmament rests. Here begins the invisible realm." I stood there, a speck of dust before the engine room of the cosmos. I witnessed the storehouses of the winds, the secret chambers where the hail and the mist are kept, the very foundations of the earth where storms are brewed before they are unleashed upon your villages. These are not weather patterns. They are treasures of creation, kept under lock and key, prepared for the day when the Lord will execute judgment. But the tour was not merely to show me the mechanics of weather. It was to show me the geography of justice. I was led to a place of desolation, a chaotic wasteland where the earth ended and the abyss began. It was a place without the firmament of heaven above or the foundation of earth beneath. It was a void, a terrifying waste prepared for the disposal of stars. I saw 7 stars of heaven bound together in that place, like great burning mountains, writhing in silent agony. Uriel, the angel who watches over the world and Tartarus, said to me, "This is the prison of the angels and the stars. These are the stars which rolled over the fire, which disobeyed the commandment of God in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come at their appointed times." Do you understand? The stars are not lifeless balls of gas. They are sentient entities with assignments, and those that deviate, those that rebel against their orbit, are arrested and incarcerated in a void of horror. If the very stars of the firmament are chained for tardiness and disobedience, what hope does a man have who spends his life spitting in the face of his Creator? From the prison of the heavens, I was dragged down, deep into the belly of the earth, to a place that makes the grave seem like a warm bed. I was taken to the abode of the dead, Sheol. This is not a mythical concept. It is a physical location in the spiritual geography, a holding cell for every soul that has ever breathed. I saw a great mountain with smooth, sheer cliffs, and within it 4 hollow places, deep and wide and very smooth. These chambers were created to separate the spirits of the souls of the dead until the day of the great judgment. It is a waiting room of silence and screaming. I saw the spirit of a dead man making suit, his voice penetrating the heavens, crying out and accusing. I asked Raphael, the Watcher and Holy One, "Whose spirit is this that cries out with such force?" He answered, "This is the spirit which went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and he makes his suit against him until his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth." The dead do not forget. The injustice done to them in life burns like a cold fire in death, and their cries are recorded. I saw that the souls are not kept together. There is a separation. I saw a spring of water and light, a place of rest for the spirits of the righteous, those who died in faith. But separated by a great chasm was a chamber of darkness for the sinners, those who died without paying for their crimes in the flesh. They are kept in great pain, waiting for a judgment that will only bring worse suffering. And there was a third chamber for those who were murdered, who cry out for justice, and a fourth for those who were not righteous but were not fully wicked, who will remain there and not rise on the day of judgment. The afterlife is not a singular destination. It is a complex bureaucracy of justice, where every soul is filed according to its deeds, waiting for the final summons. Then the scene shifted violently. I was taken from the depths of the underworld to a place of blinding glory. I saw a colossal mountain, bigger and brighter than any peak on earth, its summit piercing the clouds and shining like flaming gold. Around it were other mountains, full of precious stones, but this one stood supreme. At its summit, I saw a throne. It was not made of wood or stone. It was made of cold fire and solidified light. And near this throne was a tree. Oh, that tree! Its fragrance was unlike anything that has ever entered the nostrils of man. It smelled of life itself, a scent that could heal a broken bone or mend a shattered mind just by breathing it in. I asked Michael, "What is this tree?" And he told me, "This is the tree of life. No mortal is permitted to touch it until the great judgment. On that day, its fruit will be given to the elect, and it will be transplanted to the holy place, to the temple of the Lord, the eternal King." You look for medicines to prolong your life. You inject chemicals to stave off decay. But the source of immortality is standing in a garden you cannot see, guarded by a sword you cannot pass, waiting for a generation that is worthy to eat of it. But the visions were not done. The Lord of Spirits, the architect of this vast machine, desired to show me the future of humanity through 3 great parables. This was the second book of my revelations, a collection of profound visions about the destiny of the righteous and the wicked. I saw the heavens open and a flaming abyss appear, a place of living darkness where fire rose without consuming. And I saw the Son of Man. This is the mystery that has baffled sages for millennia. I saw a figure, a human form, but his face burned with a brilliance that made the sun look like a dying coal. He was seated on the throne of glory, and the Lord of Spirits was with him. I asked the angel, "Who is this, and why does he go with the head of days?" And the angel answered, "This is the Son of Man who has righteousness, with whom righteousness dwells, and who reveals all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of Spirits has chosen him." This figure was not a new creation. He was named before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made. He is the staff for the righteous to lean on, the light of the Gentiles, and the hope of those who are troubled of heart. But to the kings of the earth, the strong and the mighty, who possess the land, he is a terror beyond description. I saw a vision of the future judgment that made my knees water. I saw the kings and the mighty, those who own the banks, the armies, and the governments of your world, being dragged before this Son of Man. These men, who were used to being worshipped, who thought their power was absolute, were suddenly stripped of their arrogance. They looked upon the Son of Man and were terrified. Pain seized them as a woman in labor. They tried to hide, but there was no shadow in that place, only exposing light. the books of the living were opened. These are not metaphors, they are records. Every thought, every word, every secret deal made in a dark room, every drop of innocent blood shed for profit, it was all written down. I saw the mighty kings fall on their faces, begging for mercy, pleading for just a little more time, asking for a respite so they might fall down and worship the Lord of Spirits. But it was too late. Their time had run out. The angel said, "They shall be driven from the congregations of his church and of the faithful." They were dragged away, their faces filled with shame, and darkness grew deeper on their faces. They were cast into the penal fire, into the jagged jaws of a punishment that never ends. The wealth they accumulated, the gold and the silver, flowed away like water, useless to save them. I saw the reversal of all things. The righteous, who were despised and rejected on earth, who were trampled under the boots of the strong, were now shining like the stars of heaven. They stood in the light of the Son of Man, clothed in garments of glory, garments that do not grow old. And the wicked, who feasted while the poor starved, were vanished, erased from the memory of the earth. I saw the earth itself transformed. The pollution, the blood, the decay, it was all washed away. The mountains skipped like rams, and the hills like lambs satisfied with milk. The Son of Man had stretched out his hand, and the world breathed again. This is the promise and the warning. The structure of power you see today is a temporary illusion. The skyscrapers, the armies, the banking systems, they are sand castles built below the high tide line, and the tide is coming in. The vision of the parables concluded with a terrifying clarity. The Son of Man is the pivot upon which all history turns. He is the filter through which every soul must pass. I saw the fallen angels, the watchers who started this whole nightmare, being brought out of their prisons for final sentencing. They were led to the abyss of fire, to the torment and the prison in which they shall be confined forever. Their hybrid children, the demons that plague your mind, were cast into the furnace. And humanity was divided, not by race, not by wealth, not by nation, but by their allegiance to the light or the darkness. I wrote these things down not to entertain you, but to warn you. You are living in the days of delay, the brief pause before the hammer falls. The books are open, the pen is moving, and the ink is indelible. The angels then showed me the secrets of the lights, the astronomical clockwork that governs your reality. But that is a mystery for another moment. For now, let the image of the Son of Man, seated on a throne of fire, judging the kings of the earth, burn into your mind. Because one day you will not see it in a vision. You will see it with your own eyes. And on that day, it will be too late to choose which side of the throne you stand on. You have been taught that time is a human invention, a convenient measurement of decaying atoms and ticking seconds. But you are wrong. Time is a divine cage, a rigid, electrified grid of celestial mechanics that has been grinding since the moment of creation, and you are trapped inside it. While the fallen angels were being shackled in the abyss, and the giants were tearing the earth apart with their teeth, I, Enoch, was taken by the angel Uriel to the very edge of the atmosphere to witness the terrifying precision of the machine that governs your reality. What I saw destroys the poetic notion of a friendly universe. The cosmos is not friendly. It is obedient. It is a system of absolute, terrifying order. And in a universe of perfect obedience, the only anomaly, the only glitch in the code, is you. Uriel, the guardian of the celestial luminary. This is the divine clock. The year, Uriel revealed to me, is exactly 364 days. Not a second more, not a second less. It is a perfect cycle, a mathematical symphony where no season arrives too early and none lingers too late. All occupy their place like perfect gears, Uriel told me, his voice echoing like the hum of a high-voltage line. But he warned me of a corruption to come. He told me that in the last days, your days, humanity would disturb the knowledge of the cycles of light. You would reject the order given by God, altering times and seasons to fit your own broken understanding. You would look at the perfect 364-day cycle and claim it is flawed, inventing your own calendars, your own times, drifting further from the rhythm of the cosmos until you are out of sync with creation itself. The sun obeys. The moon, with its 29 and 30-day cycles, riding its silver chariot through the night, obeys. The stars, which I saw as burning entities with names and ranks, march across the sky in perfect formation. But you wander. Uriel pointed to the stars and said, "These stars proclaim the glory of the Most High. Their obedience is a silent sermon to all humanity. But the heart of man has become foolish. I learned that the falling stars, the meteors you wish upon, are not signs of luck. They are warnings. They are the celestial equivalent of deserters being shot on the battlefield. I saw stars that had deviated from their course, that had tried to break their orbit, and they were torn from the sky and cast into the abyss, bound in chains of darkness. The lesson was brutal and clear. In this universe, freedom from God's law is not liberation. It is disintegration." After the lesson of the lights, the tone of the visions shifted from the cold precision of space to the chaotic violence of judgment. I was returned to my house, but there was no peace. The sky above me seemed to tear open, not like a curtain, but like a wound. I was seized by a vision of the great flood, the reboot of humanity. This was not the gentle rain of a children's storybook. It was the collapse of the biosphere. I saw the clouds parting like seas suspended in the air, and then gravity seemed to reverse. The waters without measure did not just fall. They crushed. I saw mountains, ancient, immovable peaks, being swallowed whole. I saw the valleys, where human civilization had huddled for safety, disappearing under colossal waves of black water. The sound was the worst part. It was the sound of a planet drowning. I saw everything that breathed, men, women, the Nephilim giants, the cattle, being swept away by currents that moved with the force of a grinding tectonic plate. Terror seized my spirit, a cold grip on my heart that made me scream out in my sleep, "O Most High, what am I seeing? Will the whole earth be destroyed? And what about the righteous?" The voice of the Lord of Spirits answered me, not with comfort, but with facts. "The whole earth will be destroyed," he said. The corruption had gone too deep. The genetic and spiritual infection of the Watchers had compromised the entire system. But then, the promise, "I will preserve the righteous." He spoke of Noah, the one man whose genetic code and spiritual allegiance remained uncorrupted. "He will build an ark," the Lord declared. It was to be a capsule of life in a world of death. This vision was the death warrant of the antediluvian world, the final notification that the experiment of coexistence with the fallen angels was over. But the Lord was not done. He shifted the lens of revelation again, showing me the entire history of humanity, from the Garden of Eden to the final apocalypse. But he stripped away the human faces. He showed me the vision of the animals. In this symbolic nightmare, I saw the true nature of men and nations. I saw a white bull emerge from the earth. This was Adam. He was pure, strong, the first prototype. Then a heifer, Eve, appeared beside him. They were the original design. Then I saw a new white bull, Seth, and a black bull, Cain. The color coding was not subtle. It was a depiction of the soul. But then the vision turned horrific. I saw stars fall from heaven, the Watchers. But when they hit the earth, they didn't remain stars. They transformed into bulls with large sexual organs, driven by an unnatural lust. They began to mount the cows, the women of earth. This was the biological corruption portrayed in its rawest form. From this grotesque union, new creatures were born: elephants, camels, and donkeys. These represented the Nephilim and the varying degrees of monstrous offspring. They were not part of the natural order. They were invasive species. These monsters began to bite and devour the white bulls, tearing the herd apart. The white bulls, humanity, were helpless. They trembled and fled, but there was nowhere to hide. Then came the cleansing. I saw the Lord of Spirits open the sluice gates of heaven. The water rose, and the elephants and camels, the giants, sank. They drowned in the mud of their own making. A vessel floated upon the water, the ark, carrying the last remaining white bull, Noah, and 3 young bulls, Shem, Ham, Japheth. When the waters receded, the world was silent. The monsters were gone. But the rebellion is a virus that never truly dies. It only mutates. From the 3 bulls that exited the ark, a multitude of animals was born: birds of prey, wolves, lions. The nations of the world diversified, but they also devolved. And then I saw the bulls gathering together in a plain, possessed by a new form of madness. They began to stack stones. They began to build a tower. This was the Tower of Babel, though in my vision it was a hive of restless animals trying to claw their way back to the heaven they had been exiled from. The arrogance was palpable. They believed that if they built high enough, they could challenge the stars themselves. But the Lord of Spirits descended. He did not need an army. He simply confused their tongues. I saw the bulls mooing and bleating at each other in confusion, their unity shattered by the chaotic noise of misunderstanding. They scattered across the face of the earth, forming the fractured nations you see today. But amidst the wolves and the wild beasts that preyed on the flock, I saw a ram emerge. A ram with a great horn, Abraham. He was different. He did not run with the pack. He looked up. He was the restart of the righteous line, the man who would stand against the chaos. The vision showed me that history is a war between the predators and the flock, between the wolves who devour and the rams who protect. This vision of the animals continued. scrolling through centuries of future history, kings, prophets, exiles, depicting the endless cycle of humanity falling into sin and being rescued by a chosen few. It showed that we are not sophisticated civilizations. We are a herd, constantly threatened by wolves, constantly prone to wandering off cliffs, and constantly in need of a shepherd. And as the vision faded, leaving me sweating and trembling in my bed, I realized the most terrifying truth of all. The flood washed away the giants, but it did not wash away the human capacity for evil. The seed of rebellion survived on the boat. The viral outro and twist. We look at the stars and see romance. Enoch looked at them and saw a prison schedule. We look at history and see progress. Enoch saw a barnyard massacre where the wolves are winning. But here is the haunting realization that should keep you awake tonight. In Enoch's vision, the monsters and giants were destroyed by the flood. The biological abominations were wiped out. But in the vision of the future, our present, the wolves and the birds of prey return. If the Nephilim drowned, where did the wolves come from? The twist is in the mirror. The monsters of the post-flood world aren't falling from the sky anymore. They are rising from us. The corruption of the Watchers didn't just create physical giants. It infected the human code with a meme of self-destruction. We didn't need the fallen angels to return to build the Tower of Babel. We did that ourselves. We don't need demons to teach us how to make swords anymore. We perfected the atom bomb on our own. The ancient monsters were hybrids of angel and man. The modern monsters are just men who have decided they don't need angels at all. So the binary question you must answer is this: are you a white bull struggling to remain pure in a slaughterhouse? Or have you quietly allowed yourself to become a wolf because it's safer to be the predator than the prey? In the final chapter, we will unlock the Epistle of Enoch and the 10 weeks, a prophecy that claims to pinpoint exactly where we are on the timeline of the apocalypse. Subscribe now, because if Enoch is right, we are already in the last week, and the weekend is canceled.